I'm Timothy Vigil, and this is just another word podcast. The Word of the Day podcast for storytellers. G is for garrulous. The aim of a joke is not to degrade the human being, but to remind him that he is a degraded human being. George Orwell. Imagine sitting on a 6-hour train ride. Next to you sits a traveler who doesn't just talk, they prattle, they unspool. They tell you about their nephew's grade school graduation, the specific brand of their carpet cleaner, the exact temperature of the tea they had last week. They don't just converse, they overwhelm you with trivial information. This is the garrulous soul. Garrulous stems, again, from Latin. The word comes from the verb garrire, meaning to chatter or to prattle, and it shares an ancient root with the word for crane or crow, birds known for their incessant, noisy calling. Garrulousness is this very interesting idea. We see it in characters all the time, these characters who just talk and talk and talk and ramble, but we should separate it from some similar words. Loquacious is another word that means very talkative, but can be someone who is eloquent or skilled. Voluble is someone who speaks with great ease and fluidity. But garrulous specifically implies talking too much about things that don't matter, rambling and being pointlessly wordy. Hopefully something I'm not doing on this very podcast where I talk about a trivial thing like words. But back to the point. Garrulousness has this specific feel in narrative, in stories. It's the sound of a clock that doesn't tell the time. It just keeps ticking. It's overstimulation, garrulousness. A character who speaks all the time and never says anything can be so overwhelming. Similar to cacophony, a word that I talked about earlier this season, garrulous character creates a wall of sound that can be murderous to the ears. Garrulousness is often a mask. Often a person becomes garrulous because they are afraid of silence. If they stop talking, they might have to think, or worse, they might have to listen. Wait, but you're thinking, I just talked about two different things. One is characterization, and one is character. It can be so annoying, but if it can show us some internal part of the character, could it be good? It depends, because garrulousness is often exhausting. Unlike an eloquent speaker who inspires, a garrulous speaker drains the energy from a room by focusing on the mundane. Using a character like this is something that requires you to walk a tightrope. See, I think garrulous characters are really great. For a writer, it can be a gift for characterization, but a challenge for pacing. Ways that you could use a garrulous character are as comic relief. Think of a sidekick who provides a bit of information buried under 5 minutes of nonsense about their cat. A long story, winding and boring, with a little nugget of information hidden in there. I think a garrulous character often works best if they are not the character who we're hearing through the story. A garrulous character who is telling a story to the main character while the main character is thinking about something else can be a wonderful way to give us an insight into two characters at once. Another way that we can use garrulous characters for characterization is the weaponized bore. A character who uses chatter to distract a guard or to make an interrogator give up to sheer annoyance. You've likely seen this in storytelling many times. A character who is so annoying that they are able to distract someone who's seemingly undistractable. The last way I would like to talk about it is the tragic gap, showing a character who is desperately lonely. Their garrulousness is a reach for connection. They are throwing out thousands of words like anchors, hoping finally that one of them will catch on someone else. Throwing out so much information in the hope that something they say will connect. But there's a trap here, using any of these. Because if your character is too garrulous, your prose becomes garrulous. Your prose becomes overstimulating. The trick is to describe the chatter rather than making a reader or a listener sit through every single trivial word. We have to show the effect of the talk on others, the glazed eyes, the frantic looking for an accent, to convey the weight of the word. A garrulous character is a wonderful, wonderful thing, if used correctly. Characterization is one of the most difficult things for many writers to get right. How do you make characters feel different? How do you make them feel alive? And this is one way that you can create a lot of opportunity. Garrulous itself as a word in your prose is likely one that you shouldn't use. Garrulous will confuse most readers. They will have no idea what you are talking about. But it is one that you can show. It is one that you, as a storyteller, as a writer, should know. If you're telling a story orally to someone, and you go on and on and on and on about the details that aren't that important, you will eventually bore your audience. The same thing is true in written narrative. If you go on and on and on and on about specific details, this is something that The Lord of the Rings is often mocked for in modern writing. I disagree with people, but they say that he describes too much, that there's too much backstory. And I can see where they're coming from. Tolkien could be described a little bit as a garrulous writer. He describes these things that aren't really important to the story, but they were important to the world. They were important to the history that he was drawing on. I think we should put a little bit more of this in the background and use garrulousness intentionally to distract a reader or to confuse a reader or to show great characterization. Ultimately, garrulousness reminds us that while words are our primary tools, their value is often found in their scarcity. See, as storytellers, we have to know when to let the chatter flow to reveal that character's flaw, and when to cut through the noise to find the melody. In a world full of meaningless noise, sometimes the most powerful thing a character can do is finally be silent. This is a way that you can take a character and show wonderful, wonderful growth in them. Taking a character who starts as garrulous and grows to be more succinct with their words is a wonderful way to see how they are truly connecting. Think if you had that character who was desperately lonely, constantly talking, and they're finally befriended, and they find that by saying less, they can actually express more. Garrulousness is a wonderful thing for your characters. Just remember not to be the one who's being garrulous with your prose. You have been listening to Just Another Word podcast with your host, Timothy Vigil. For more information, go to timothyvigil.com.